What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. My name's Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. With that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Aberlour A'bunadh Alba Batch 6. Stick around. We're looking at the Aberlour A'bunadh Alba today, which is a cask strength release. This one comes out in batches, and this is an offshoot of the standard Aberlour A'bunadh line. The difference being that the standard line is sherry matured, and this one is matured in first fill bourbon casks. I'll start by saying that I'm a big fan of the regular A'bunadh line, or I used to be. I don't think it's quite as good now, which of course is a classic whiskey drinker complaint. Things were better back in the day. Of course, you don't want to always be that guy. It's not always true, but it often is. Like a lot of these old legendary cask strength whiskeys that were such a huge part of my formative years as a whiskey drinker. It's a really weird way of saying it. Formative years. My early years as a whiskey enthusiast. So a lot of those whiskeys they aren't my go-tos anymore. There were a few whiskeys that I would always turn to for a high quality hit of cask strength goodness. It'd be stuff like the old Aberlour A'bunadhs, it'd be stuff like A'bunadh Alba. And listen, these whiskeys are still decent, but they definitely were better back in the day, as were a lot of things. Also, I don't care for this rock and roll music the kids are listening to these days. It's too loud. Anyway, I can't say I've had a lot of bourbon matured Aberlours before. I'm sure there are a few IBs floating around, but it's definitely not their preferred style. Like, these guys are the sherry guys, one of the sherry guys. So having a bourbon matured option from them is actually a little bit of a surprise. So this one is no age stated like the original. I've got batch 6 here. Apparently local barley was used to produce this, which is cool. I mentioned it's first fill bourbon. Sadly, Jessica Alba had nothing to do with the production process. This was matured in casks made from Quercus alba, which is an American type of oak. And listen, I'm not sure where this is going to go, but I am cautiously optimistic. So let's jump into our review and find out. In the meantime, if you could kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So our ABV on this one is high. It's up there. This is a whopping 62% ABV, which is a lot. Possibly too much. We'll find out. It's also non-chill filtered, and our color is natural, so everything's looking good. Show you our color there. As for the bottle, I always loved Aberlour bottles. I still do. I think it's a fantastic look. I like the vintage torn label look. It looks like it's been stamped and handwritten, and just, aren't we so craft and small batch? It's a look, that's what they're going for, but I do think it works. I think it looks great, so 5 out of 5 for presentation. It does say that it's non-chill filtered, but nothing about natural color. Still, relatively good information on the bottle. We have more info on the sleeve over there. It talks a little bit about the oak that was used, gives us some tasting notes. Overall, decent information, and the bottle's really cool. So we'll start by saying that I added plenty of water to calm this down, and you probably should too. Let's start with the nose. Okay, right out the gate, we're getting a lot of like big first fill bourbon type flavors in here. So big honey, vanilla, oak. There's a nice barley note in here too. There's cereals, grains, pastries, apple pie, green apple. There's citrus. There's also banana in here. This is a lot more high-pitched and bright than your regular Aberlours, that's for sure. And now the palate. Not gentle. Not gentle. Big, robust, oily. Start off with big barley notes, cereals, grains. There's some soft vanilla, green apple, more banana, lemon tart, nutmeg, honey, malt. It's biting and it's sharp, but it is nice. And now our finish. Okay, a little bit of a youthful bite here. Not off-putting though. Back to that apple pie note. green apples again, nutmeg, cinnamon, white pepper, and cereals. We're trailing off on some vanilla, some grain, and some spices. Long finish. Okay, so this is better than I expected. Like I said, I was cautiously optimistic, and if I'm being honest, I really don't have a lot of faith in this brand. They're not a favorite brand of mine, too much 40% swill, but I thought this had a shot at being an interesting and fresh take on Aberlour whiskey, and it is. Now, it's not perfect, and we'll get to that, but I do appreciate that they're playing with bourbon, and of course, I appreciate that it's cask strength. And at 62%, it's very cask strength. Again, add some water. But the flavors in here are genuinely nice. Like, this is good whiskey. The barley and grain and cereal notes in here are very forward, but I do like that. And I also really like that green apple note, which I think might be too tart for some of you. But for me, it's a nice counterbalance to the sweetness in this whiskey, of which there is plenty because we have those big first fill bourbon flavors. So we have that thick vanilla, those big oak flavors, big honey notes. It's a legitimately nice profile. I can't complain. So with that being said, here's me complaining. This is a fantastic whiskey that's just a little bit too young. And that's a theme that I've noticed with a lot of modern Aberlours or modern Aberlour A'bunadhs. It's true of the standard line, the sherry line, and it's true of this one too. I think a few extra years in the casks would really round this whiskey out. Like, I think with a few more years, this could be a really good whiskey. Like, it could be one of the greats even. If this was 10 years old or 12 years old, I'm sure it would be spectacular. We'd have more complexity, we'd have more depth, it would be rounder, and we wouldn't get that same bite from the alcohol. And the thing is, that bite and that sharpness can be calmed with water, and with enough water, I thoroughly enjoy this whiskey. I love the flavors in here. It's one of those whiskeys where you get that if only itch when you're drinking it. Like, it happens to me a lot where maybe I'm drinking like a low ABV whiskey, and I get that itch. I think if only this was a higher ABV, it would be amazing. And that's what I get here. I get that if only itch, if only it were a little bit more mature, if only it were a few years older, and if it were, maybe we wouldn't need so many active first fill bourbon casks. Maybe we could throw some refill casks in there. Let the spirit talk for itself. Actually, you know what? At this point, I'm just building my own imaginary bottle of Aberlour, so I should probably reel it in. Listen, this is a fantastic profile. I think there's so much potential here, and it's a delicious whiskey even as it is. But to be honest, it's convinced me that Aberlour should be playing around more with bourbon barrels. They actually fit the style perfectly, especially considering the quality of their sherry casks has dipped in recent years, in my opinion. So yeah, let's explore bourbon more. Like, it's a good house style, and it's always, I don't want to say it's always masked in sherry, but it's always dressed in sherry. And the bourbon profile really works here. So let's see where this could go. If you asked me to describe this whiskey, I would probably say it's an Aberlour without sherry meets Deanston Virgin Oak meets Glencadam 10. Now, it's not as affordable as either of those whiskeys, and it's not as good as Glencadam 10, but the profile is leaning in that bright, Highlandy direction, just with more of those first fill bourbon base flavors, and again, it really works. So I really like this stuff. I want to see more of it. I'm going to score this an 86. I do wish it was a little bit older, but listen, it's a warm 86. I like the flavors here, and I really like the potential that we've got. Like, even though I haven't loved Aberlour's trajectory over the last few years, it does give me hope that they're trying new things, and I think this is a really cool direction for them. Now let's talk about value. So when it comes to value, I think this bottle is just okay. I certainly don't feel gypped. I don't regret buying this bottle. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, but I'm not sure I'll buy a second. If I were to, I would either want the price to go down, something I'm not going to hold my breath for, or I'd like the age to go up. If this was just a few years older, I would be happy to give Aberlour my money. That being said, if you're curious about this stuff and you want to try a bourbon matured Aberlour and you don't mind a little bit of bite and a little bit of youth in your whiskey, I'm sure some of you will be perfectly happy with this whiskey. Listen, I can't argue with it. It's legitimately good stuff. All right, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. That is always appreciated. And of course, I want to hear from you. Have you tried our Aberlour A'bunadh Alba? What are your thoughts? How would you compare it to the regular sherry release? Finally, down below in the comments, you can let me know what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye guys.